Hi, and welcome back to my garden channel. So I wanted to talk today about planning your garden in this video. It's winter time here, and all the seed catalogs have come in the mail. The choices, though, can be a bit overwhelming. I mean, this Burpee catalog on the left is 130 pages long. That could be a bit overwhelming, especially for someone new to the hobby. So how do you choose? But 150 pages long, and then look at the tomatoes. We've got 4, 8, 10, 11 pages of just tomatoes. This is a bit ridiculous, right? How do you choose? I mean, no one's going to want a tomato that big, right? Unless you've got, some kind of blue ribbon prize you're going after, or something specific. Some people want stuff like that. And that's fine. So I just wanted to talk about how you choose this stuff. How do you narrow it down? I guess the first thing to do is figure out what you want to grow first. So what are your goals? What are your objectives for the year? For me, I prefer growing something I can eat over something that's more, let's say, ornamental. That's not to say that ornamental flowers are not in my garden. They certainly are. I have a lot out front, different types of things. I'm always going to prioritize, what I can grow by things that I can eat. So the tomatoes, cucumbers, broccoli, cauliflower, salad, stuff like that. So even last year, I planted with my daughters a variety of seeds I found at the hardware store. It's called a butterfly garden. And it complemented the vegetables really well. It had some sunflowers in there, which brought in the pollinators, brought in the bees. And you need bees. You need bees for your garden. For certain vegetables, you absolutely need them to be able to help the tomatoes grow. Without them, it's very hard. It's not impossible, but it's hard. So let's split this up into a couple activities here. First, let's pick out what we want to grow. I guess the second part would be, how much space do I have? But right now, let's just focus on, in an ideal world, what will we be growing? So for me, tomatoes. I mean, we eat so many tomatoes. Last year I grew 4 tomato plants. They were all transplants. There's nothing wrong with getting transplants over seeds. 2 of them were the larger style tomato that you would put in a salad, and 2 were the smaller cherry style. And we ate them all. And in some cases, my 3-year-old, as she was picking the cherry tomatoes, would pop them in her mouth, and they never even made it in the house. So that was successful. Yeah, to say the least. So this year, I'd love to at least double my tomato production this year. I'd love to get to a point where I can make sauce. And that's kind of an activity I haven't gotten into quite yet, but I'd like to. I'd like to at least double my tomato production. My family loves tomatoes, and I'd like to find a way to extend that tomato production into the winter in the form of sauce or other things. Next is carrots. We eat a lot of carrots in this house. It's a weekly staple from the store. I grew some last year. Didn't do too well. I think they kept hitting some hard spots in the soil. So lesson learned this year. But you can grow a lot of carrots in just a small area. I think it's 16 or 18 carrots you can grow in 1 square foot. That's a bit of carrots. That's quite a bit. So we're gonna have that on top of the list. Broccoli and cauliflower is the next. And that's one where I kind of like cauliflower more in the fall and winter, mainly because I love the smell and the taste of roasted vegetables out of the oven, and that I don't associate that with the hot summer. I associate that with the cold weather. So. That's something that I'm looking at. Garlic. We use a ton of garlic in the house. Speaking of kind of when you want to plant things, you know, garlic's one of those ones you plant in the fall. So you don't need to take up garden space for it now. It's something you plant in the fall. Now it will take up garden space next spring and summer, depending on what the maturity rate is and when you can pick it. But if garlic's something you want to do, that's something you plant in the fall before the first frost, and it kind of takes root. And then the next year you can kind of pull from that. And herbs, always herbs. There's times where I have basil growing outside. I have basil growing inside in a jar right in the kitchen, or not a jar, a pot of some sort. So herbs are always at the top of the list, and then the greens. You know, we eat a lot of salads in this house, so some kind of salad mixture, or just some kind of standard salad. I'll also get some spinach. We eat a lot of sautéed spinach and just spinach in general in the house, and then kale as well. Just kale in our smoothies and sometimes in the salads. And then finally, you know, something I would want to put something in place that is for the pollinators in the garden as well. Certainly the tomatoes and the herbs and some of the other things that I'll put in will attract the bees and feed the bees and help them out. But I'd like to put something else in there just for them. And there's plenty of options. Anything that kind of flowers is typically what you would want. But for me, I'd probably put something like a lavender in there, or maybe a sunflower, some sunflowers of some sort. And that would actually, you know, help quite a bit. So now that we made the list, let's talk about how to choose seeds. You know, let's talk about tomatoes again. Let's talk about these 9 pages of tomatoes. For me, I've got 3 goals this year. I want tomatoes that I can put in a salad. I'd like to do some tomatoes that I can make sauce out of, and that's, I mean, you can make sauce out of any tomato, but there are certain types of tomatoes that you can make sauce out of a little better. So something for that. And then again, the cherry tomatoes. I mean, those are great in salads. Those are great as a snack. The kids love to eat them, so I definitely want a lot of those. And I actually have some older tomato seeds. You can see them here at the top. They expired back in 2011, 2012, somewhere in that time frame. I'm actually germinating those now to see if they're still good. That was my first video. This is my second one. If you'd like to see that one, I'll put a link below. And if I can figure out how to, I'll do one of those cards so you can click on it up in the corner. If not, it'll be in the description below. But you know, for the purposes of this exercise, let's just assume I don't have these seeds or they're no good. We're just going to start choosing based on, you know, kind of what I need. So looking at the catalog, let's narrow it down. Here's what here's where you need to think about what you are looking for out of your garden. You'll notice, I mean, at least in the Burpee catalog here, there are a lot of hybrids. I mean, Burpee's known for this Burpee exclusive. They're creating their own type of tomato, and there's nothing wrong with hybrids. Nothing wrong with them all. They make some great tomatoes. I mean, some of their big boys, their brandy boys. I mean, these are famous tomatoes that you know are people enjoy. I mean, I've enjoyed them in the past. The problem with hybrids, though, is they were specifically cross-pollinated. You know, they take 2 tomato plants that are, you know, have good properties, and they combine them. So they're cross-pollinating them to get the best properties out of each one. And that's good, but you can't really harvest the seeds from these tomatoes. You can, but you're not going to get the same tomato the following year that you got the first year. That's just kind of how it works. It'll revert back to a lot of the qualities of the tomatoes that made up this hybrid. So for me, I also want to do some seed harvesting this year, so I'm going to try to stay away from that. So right away, I can say that takes away quite a few tomatoes. So these are the ones to make sauce. So there's one page there, 2, 3, There's 5 right there. There's 5 pages. So we've just narrowed it down to 5 pages. And within there, most of these seem to be hybrids. Just looking at them, I've heard Brandywine Pink. I've heard of that one being a really good one. That happens to be an heirloom. So maybe that's one I would choose. I've heard of Black Krim. For some reason, I still can't get over different colored tomatoes. I know that's probably how they were back in the day. Maybe that's something I need to get over and try, but that might be a good tomato to get me out of that rut. And let's see, what else? What else is here? I've heard of Hungarian Heart. I don't see the picture of it here. But I guess they can't have a picture for everything. And then look at the size of these. These porterhouse ones must be a hybrid. I mean, these are just huge. Yeah, porterhouse hybrid. I can't imagine something that huge though having a great flavor. I would imagine it would taste watered down over time, kind of like those huge strawberries you get in the store. They don't have the flavor of kind of the normal size strawberries. So maybe you know, Hungarian Heart, Black Krim, and definitely the Brandywine Pink would be ones that I would choose. So moving on to the sauce, that's a lot of these. Let's see. I guess it's just 1 page for the sauce, so it makes it much easier. You see a lot of hybrids here as well. I mean, this is going to be easy because, I mean, the Romas, that's the traditional one. You see that in the store all the time. So there's the Romas, and then San Marzano, if I'm saying that right. That's another really good Italian sauce making tomato. So I'd probably choose one of those. I'd probably just choose one here. I don't know if I would do, this is my first time getting into sauces, so I'd probably just choose one of them. And quite frankly, 250 seeds, even 75 seeds, that's a lot. And finally, the cherry tomatoes. You know, we got 1, 2, 3 pages for that, and 2.5. I guess turnips are coming up on us here. Just in general, I would probably say, well, there's a lot of hybrids here as well. And again, there's nothing wrong with hybrids. So maybe you do a combination. Maybe I choose 2 different ones, and I choose a hybrid here. This Cherry Baby, I've heard of this one from Burpee. That's supposed to be pretty good. And then if I want to do, there's Gardens Delight. There's an heirloom there. It's up there. So maybe those are the 2 that I choose. Garner's Delight right there. And that's it. So, you know, and one more thing to think about is if this is something you're new to, there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm going to go to the big box store, the garden center, Home Depot, wherever, and just buy some transplants. I mean, that's what I did last year. And in fact, I think from Home Depot, the tomatoes I got were all Burpees. I don't recall which ones. I think the Big Boy might have been one of them, or one of the steakhouse ones. I'm not 100% sure, but they were delicious. You know, I've grown hybrids and have been happy. So, you know, in that case, you're not gonna harvest seeds from them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if this is new to you, yeah, I mean, go ahead, go get something from the garden center. I mean, it'll cost you a little more. Probably one transplant will cost you the same as, you know, a package of 20 or 30 seeds. But, you know, you now have a plant that you can help mature a little bit in the pot, and then when you're ready, transplant it outside, versus getting the seed starting mix, hoping it germinates, keeping it alive those weeks out inside before the last frost. You know, that can be a lot of work. So go ahead and get a transplant. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It'll help you out because you know, they only have a limited selection there anyway, so you don't have to go through this 150-page catalog. Or you just do a combination. You can do a combination of things. So let me know what you think. This is definitely, you know, this is my second video. This is something I'd like to do a little more of. Let's look at these seeds that were germinating from the first video. It's only been 2 days, so not too much activity yet. But yeah, let me know what you think. Please comment below if you have any questions or something you'd like to see specifically. And subscribe if you like it. I'm planning more videos. I'll probably do something outside this weekend. Probably do something, show you my compost pile. And like, subscribe, and share it, please. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for joining me.